Okay, I'll go over what we are here today for it once again before our speaker comes up. The series for today is about a guide towards building and launching our startups. A lot of us have this at back of our mind. A lot of us have a lot of ideas, but we don't know how to build and launch it. So today you'll be given a guide. You'll be enlightened about steps to take for you to learn and build your startups, from idea to validation to scaling. That's what this event today is going to give to you, from your idea to validation and to scaling. You gain proper insight into crafting of business plan, securing funding, and creating strong teams armed with the skills and entrepreneurial mindsets. They'll be ready to navigate, you all will be ready to navigate challenges and turn your startup visions into successful realities. So I want you all to put your mind, your heart, your soul, because if you're just listening to this and you're not into this, you'll not be gaining what you are here to gain. So I want you all to be ready to gain what you are here for. And I'll be inviting our speaker right now once again, who is Ajileye Wave. He's a Cowrie Rice ambassador, like I said the other time, and is also the founder of Flaury Project, and also a cult member of Google Developer Student Club. So right now, I'll be handing over to Ajileye Wave to enlighten us, give us all the knowledge we need to guide us in building and launching our startup. Ajileye Wave, over to you right now. You all are not even eager to hear from your speaker. Your emojis are supposed to be flowing in. Let me see your emojis. You all are supposed to be eager to hear from your speaker. Are you not eager to hear from your speaker? Hey, you all are supposed to be eager. Your emojis are supposed to be flowing in. Yeah. All right. While we are wait. Okay. I think he's up now. All right. While we are wait, Ajileye Wave to get prepared, I'd like to share some idea with us. Okay. All right. You all are supposed to be prepared, to settle these questions. How can you start a company from scratch? How to begin as a startups? How to begin as a startup? Those are the knowledge you'll be gaining today, and I want you all to have it at the back of your mind to gain all you need to gain. There will be lots of insights, a lot of comprehensive understanding that will be given to us today. This session will be diving into essential steps, strategies required to turn your vision into a thriving venture, from igniting the spark of innovation to crafting a successful blueprint and understanding the legal foundations. The sessions offer invaluable insight for startup enthusiasts, and I believe there are a lot of startup enthusiasts here. Is Mr. Wave back here with
Yeah, can
us?
you all hear me now? Good evening.
Yes, we can.
All right, I've been speaking for a while. I didn't know you couldn't all hear me. Sorry about that. All right, good evening, everyone. It's a privilege to be. I'd like to say a big thank you to Legacy Lab and to GDC X2 for this opportunity to speak to everyone. I presume many people here tonight, they are founders, they are savvy, people who are about to break into tech. Just before we get started into tonight's session, I would like to know, just to take a demography of people we have here tonight. Let me know if you're a startup founder here. Let me know. Or you have a product which you are building currently, or you have an idea that you are yet to work on. Let me know. And just make your reaction. Let me know if you can. If you are a founder or you have a product you're working on now. Okay, okay, quite a number of us. Right. And let me know if you can see my screen now. Can you all see my screen now? Good evening.
Yes, we are.
All right. I thank you so much. So tonight's session, as has been said earlier on, I'll be speaking on um, from vision to venture. We're speaking more about how to build and how to launch your startup, right? So we've all heard about startups. Some of us know what startups are, and some of us don't really know what startups are. Actually it's a kind of common term nowadays as compared to business. The word business or SME is not really being used as it was being used some years ago. So all those here now these days are all startup, and they want to know what really is a startup. All right. So a startup basically is a newly established business or a company that is typically in the early stage of its development. So you can actually say that a startup is actually between the early stage of its development, between the time of about like 1 month down to 5 or 3 years, depending on the kind of traction you're able to generate with that kind of duration. So within the early stage of 1 month down to about 3 to 5 years, depending on the kind of traction, kind of development that they have within that period, it can be said to be a startup. So a startup is actually like characterized by their focus on innovation. So one key marker or one key point I can use to distinguish a startup from a regular business is that they actually bring in innovation, disruptive innovation to be precise. So startups basically they bring in disruptive innovations and then they have massive growth along a period of time, right? So startups they are in pursuit of unique business ideas. It's just against the natural business ideas that you have to like find in streets or find in general business world, right? Take for example the era of AI in which we are now. That's the groundbreaking technology which is kind of making waves right now, as compared to the traditional business systems which we've actually like known over the years. If you actually check over the years, we've had different kind of innovation eras, right from the Stone Age down to the technology era in which we are now right now. So if you actually like move through these kind of phases, you actually see that one thing which is a key marker for all of this is that they bring in disruptive innovations and then they are in pursuit of unique business ideas. One thing about startups is that they actually aim to disrupt existing markets, and also they create new products or services which aim to achieve significant growth, and then they're able to scale within a particular period of time. Right. So this is one thing which can actually like use to distinguish if your idea or your product is actually a startup or a business. You need to begin to ask yourself these questions. That is my startup is it actually focused on growth? Is it actually bringing a kind of is it bringing a new innovation to the market? Is it disrupting the existing market and trajectory? Is it actually bringing a new solution to existing problems? Right. So these are the kind of questions which we need to begin to ask ourselves now if our startups actually, if our idea, right, is actually a startup or is actually a kind of regular business. So again, people actually tend to use the word SME and startup interchangeably. They don't really know the difference between a startup and a SME. There's a glaring difference between startup and SME. So the word SME or the acronym SME it actually means small, medium enterprises. So small and medium enterprises, these are known as SMEs. And there's a kind of wide difference between a startup and an SME. So going through here, and actually like say you want to begin to know if your business or your idea is actually a startup or a SME. Like you need to begin to see if your business can actually like begin to have a kind of track record of operation within a certain period of duration. Let's say you want to launch your idea now, or you have this idea in your head, and then you don't know what to go about it. You don't know if it's a startup or if it's actually an SME. So the first thing you need to first check is if the idea you're working with, if it has the potential to grow rapidly. That's the one key marker about startups. If it has the potential to grow rapidly. Take for example, let's say a normal business, let's say for example, a fashion designer, the kind of progress, the kind of growth which a fashion designer is going to experience in a business over a period of time is against that which a startup is going to experience within a certain period of time. Let's say, for example, within 6 months, we've seen startups which have actually been able to scale within 6 months, raising millions of dollars in pre-seed and in their seed rounds, right? But you don't find a fashion designer being able to raise such amount of money within that period of time. So you need to see if he's able to go with a kind of rapid growth within a short period of time. Another key marker which you need to pay attention to is actually the size, right? For a regular business, they will actually have a kind of stable workforce and a kind of stable revenue stream. But for a startup, they actually have a kind of limited team members. Let's say, for example, about 5 to 10 team members for a startup. So you don't really need to have like 100 people working for you before you know that you actually have a startup, right? As against a normal business which you have, right? As again, maybe let's say bank, for example, compared to your own tech project. So another thing which I mentioned earlier is about growth. Does it have the capacity or the potential to actually like grow over a kind of period of time, right? Another key marker for you to know if your idea or your product is a startup or is actually a SME is funding, right? Over and over, we've seen how startups, if you pay attention to, tech media channels, they speak about how that startup is able to raise, what's it called, raise certain amount of money. We read earlier about, I think about last week when payday was trending, how about Payday was able to raise about $3 million about 6 months ago, right? So one of the ways through which startups seek their funding is actually through venture capitalists or through angel investors or maybe through private equity. But for a normal SME, what they actually the route they go through to seek funding for their business is actually through traditional financial methods, maybe going to banks to get loan or going to an industrial bank to get loan. But if for a startup, one of the ways through which they generate revenue or to they seek funding for their growth is actually through VC or through angel investors or maybe PE, or maybe they're able to get into let's say an accelerator program, or let's say an incubator program, right? So another key marker is actually like the business model, right? The kind of business model which you're going to adopt in your business is going to tell maybe it's actually a SME or it's actually a startup. For a normal business, for example, what they actually like rely upon for their business model is just a normal way. But for a startup, they actually like seek other ways to they seek other business models to actually like to scale up their businesses. So another thing which you must actually like pay attention to in terms of trying to see if your idea is actually SME or is actually like a startup itself, right? Is that if it's actually like focused on improving existing ideas or is actually coming to actually like disrupt a kind of existing market or create an entirely new market, right? For example, like I said earlier on, if you make use of a fashion house, for example, what they actually do is that they actually like they create clothes and that has actually been in existence. What they actually like do generally is that they kind of create clothes, they kind of is clothes. So it's actually like general for all fashion houses. But for a startup, one thing that actually like differentiates them is that they bring in disruptive innovation to the market. Okay, take for example, when there was actually like CBN policy that was ruling against, but that was actually ruling against the way we were able to exchange naira for dollar and for other currencies. We saw how that fintechs were actually like rising within the year of about, let's say, 2016. Yeah, 2016 down to now, even from like the early 2000s when InterSwitch came into play. That was when we began to see the rise of fintechs in Nigeria. So what fintechs actually like came to do was that they came to actually like solve the problems which the normal banks, I mean our traditional banks, were unable to solve for years. Right? You need to begin to see if your product is able to solve a particular problem. It's actually like bringing a kind of innovation, or is actually like breaking grounds in the market, or is actually like creating a new market. For example, in years past, we didn't have mobility tech companies, the likes of Uber, the likes of InDrive, the likes of Bolt, right? We didn't have this before. What we actually had before was that if you want to actually like board a vehicle, or you want to travel somewhere else, you just need to go to the motor park, and then but when Uber actually like came to the scene, what they actually brought to that, they brought in a new idea that was actually like disrupting the old market now. So they're actually like kind of creating a new market in an existing market. You need to begin to see if your product or your startup itself is actually like creating a new market, or is actually like disrupting the existing market. So one key pointer for startups is that they are able to create solution to existing problems, right? So another key marker for a startup and for ESME right now is that the focus. The focus is another major part of it. That's the key marker also. That's the key marker for startups. For startups, what they actually like see for their market entry is that they kind of have a kind of global perspective. They are not limited to just their local vicinity, as against the normal businesses which we are aware of, which we see every day, right? So startups, they have a kind of wide niche in terms of their market. In terms of their market entry, they actually have kind of wide or kind of global perspective. You will not see a startup have a limited kind of perspective in terms of the market they are trying to address. Although they might actually start by addressing a smaller market, but in the long run, in the roadmap of the startup, what they will actually have in plan is that they are able to tap into global market. You need to begin to shape the idea around your product, or the idea around your startup, begin to have a kind of global perspective, have a kind of global view, as against having a kind of traditional view in your locality, right? So let your startup revolve around your global perspective, around your global environment, as against the local environment, right? Another key marker is that startups, they take high level of risk as against the normal businesses which we have. So startups, they have this kind of large heart to be able to embrace risk in the long run. They kind of put so much, right? Like they can actually like take a kind of risk of 1 to 10, as against when a normal business will just take a risk of about 1 to 2, like 1:2. But startups, they actually like they are bent on taking risk, right? You need to begin to see if my startup or my idea is ready to take the risk, because in the long run you'd actually like see that it's more of risk, but it actually has a kind of high level of risk to high level of reward in the long run, right? Another key marker is the management structure. The management structure for a kind of startup, what they actually have is that they have a kind of flat organization structure and flexibility, right? So the kind of way it's being organized is not the same way the regular businesses or the existing markets have their own structure. They have kind of very flat organization structure, very kind of flexible, as against the normal structures which we have right now, right? Another key marker is that they have what's it called, they have higher risks of failure. Yeah, that's one key marker of startups. Startups are very, very prone to failure. I think it was today or this week, if I'm right, we saw in news on a tech channel of how about 54 Gene. 54 Gene is a popular startup in Nigeria that happens to work in the genomics industry. That's the tech genomics, right? After about 3 years of their establishment, and they've raised about $54 million in seed rounds. We learned this week that the startup is actually going to be closing down, right? So we've actually seen that startups, in terms of their survival rate, they have little survival rate as against the normal businesses, right? Let's say, for example, someone who has a fashion house. There is high tendency that the business is going to last. I mean, the business is going to last for about, let's say, 1 to 20 years. There's even high probability that person can even hand it over to someone else to run. But if you actually like see the landscape of startups in Nigeria ecosystem, in Africa ecosystem, even outside Nigeria, even Silicon Valley, you can take Silicon Valley as a kind of case study. If you actually like take a kind of case study to see what's going on in Silicon Valley, you see that startups are actually like rising and falling every day. You'd actually hear that that startup is actually raised a kind of amount and a kind of, let's say, pre-seed or kind of a seed round. And the next thing you hear is that they actually like closed up, right? So one thing you need to pay attention to is that as I'm trying to build my startup, as I'm trying to build a product around my idea, there is high risk of failure. You never can tell what is going to happen to your startup tomorrow. Just one economic news can actually like dissolve your whole startup. For example, in the year 2020, I'm right, when the Nigeria government just released actually affected Patricia, that they had to even leave Nigeria totally. I think they moved to Estonia. Just one um just one news or just one legal policy from the government can actually like disrupt your entire startup, right? Take for example, the many fintechs that we have in Nigeria today, most of them are actually like they actually like focus on cross-border payments. And that is because in Nigeria, we are unable to make use of our debit cards for payments. Let's assume that the government wakes up tomorrow morning and then they try to they bring a new policy that enables Nigerians to be able to make payment internationally with their debit card. What do you think is going to happen to the fintech exist in Nigeria? Most of them will actually like close down, right? Just one news from the government, just one legal policy can actually like disrupt your entire what's it called your entire startup. Another thing that can actually like lead to the close down of the startup is from investors. Investors could just wake up overnight and then they see they're no more interested, or they are trying to like play monopoly around you, right? The number of factors can actually like bring down to the risks, can bring up to the failure of startups, not just Nigeria, but across board, right? So another thing that is a key marker for startup is that they actually big on long-term goals, right? For a normal SME, one of the things which they are focused on is actually like how to sustain the business just for them to go by, right? Why for a startup, one of the things which they are keen on is being profitable over time and then being able to, let's say, sell off maybe acquisition or IPO within a few years. So that's one of the things which you actually like seeing about startups. They actually have a long-term goal in terms of profitability. There was a news flying around earlier this year about how Flutterwave intends to actually like release their own IPO, right? So that means they've actually like had all of this in plan for in the long run. So one of the key markers for a startup is that they actually have kind of exit strategy. Most investors, VC backed, um, most VC backed or PE backed startups, they actually have kind of exit strategy. Most of it is actually like through acquisition or through IPO within a few years. So lastly, one of the key markers for you to know if your idea is suitable for a startup or it's actually a SME is that for a SME, they actually have kind of established procedure for regulatory compliance. Why for startup, they may actually like face regulatory challenges from time to time. That's one thing about startups. I said earlier on that just one policy from the government can change the entire nature of your startup. It can change the adoption rate of your startup, right? That is why I've actually advised that every startup founder or anyone that intends to build a startup, they should actually like seek advice from legal counsels, right? You can't take away your startup. You can't take the legal part of your startup away, right? It's going to affect the startup in the long run. Especially if you're operating in the fintech or a kind of widely regulated industry, you need to pay attention to you need to pay attention to regulatory compliance in your industry, right? So one thing which I want to speak again on is the spark of innovation, right? The spark of innovation. I said this earlier on that one of the things which is actually like the key markers for a startup is that they actually they bring in disruptive ideas, they bring in disruptive innovations. So for every startup that's going to make a difference in the startup game, right? One thing which must be a key driver for the company is innovation. So innovation must actually like be at the heart of your startup. For you to actually for you to evaluate your startup if it's fit if it's fit to last in the long run, is that it's able to have an idea that changes the way things are being done. So innovation is actually like the fuel of tomorrow's triumphs. At the heart of every at the heart of every game changing idea lies the spark of innovation, right? So it must be audacious in its curiosity, it must be relentless in problem solving. So your startup must actually like be solving a problem, like a particular problem. If you are keen on if you are a fan of Y Combinator, you'd actually see that one of the things which Y Combinator speaks which they are allowed on is that they should is that founders should actually like build products which the users want, build products that the users love, not just build products that you feel that you like, right? So one of the things which must be key at your startup idea or your startup product is that is actually able to solve a kind of problem, and then it's unyielding desire to redefine what's possible. So your startup must be unyielding to desire to redefine what's possible. So let's say, for example, for a number of years, people have seen this problem to be unsolved or is very very difficult to solve. If your startup is coming to that scene, one of the things which you must be keen on is that they're able to define what is impossible and make it possible. So this part ignites revolutions, they reshape industries, and then they propel us into a future limited only by imagination. All right. So I want to speak now on the blueprint for a successful startup, right? So just in case you are here tonight and then you'll be wondering what's the blueprint? How do I launch my startup? How do I build my startup? So I'll just speak about four of them, although there are more than this, right? I'll just stay on these four. So the very first thing which you need for a successful startup is number one, you need an idea. Without you without you having an idea of the exact thing which you want to build, right? So first thing first, have an idea, right? So number two, the next thing which you need to have in mind once you have the idea is you must actually have a kind of product in mind. You must have a product in mind. And number two, you must have a team, right? You must actually have a team which want to execute, which is going to build the product around around the idea. And number four, you must actually have a kind of execution plan um, for you to say you want to build the whole product. So going back to number one, ideas are the foundation of any startup. Yeah, that's the basic block. That's the basic building block of any startup. So ideas are the foundation of any startup. It can come from your personal experience. It could come from market observations. It could come through from you paying attention to industry trends. Or they could actually come from your personal desire to actually like solve a specific problem, right? So most of these things which I actually said here are the key pointers or the key drivers for you to actually evaluate your idea. So if you actually like be thinking of how can I have an idea to build a startup around, one thing which must pay attention is that, let's say, for example, you've actually been working in an industry or be working in a company, for example, right? And you've actually like seen, you've seen the ugly part of the industry or the ugly part of the company, or you've seen one part of the company which you actually like play the blind spot to. That could actually like spark an idea for you to say you want to solve this problem. It can be for your personal experiences, from your personal pains, be from you observing the trends in the market. All right. So the quality and the uniqueness of your idea play a vital role in differentiating your startup from competitors. So for you to actually have a startup that scales, you must evaluate your idea. And one way to evaluate your idea is to see if it has quality and if it is very, very unique, or now that like how it's going to play a vital role in solving a problem which your competitors are presently solving, or they played the, or they actually like they have a blind spot to. You've not paid attention to it. Also, your idea should be thoroughly researched and validated to ensure that there is a demand for the product or service that you plan to develop. Ideas are flowing everywhere. Ideas are flowing every day, right? But there is need for us to filter through our idea to see if this idea is actually kind of if it's viable to work with, right? So you need to like have a kind of thorough market research to see if this idea is worth paying attention to, if this idea is actually like worth my time, if this idea is worth my personal effort and my funds or investor funds. So you need to like you need to filter through your ideas, right? So another thing which you need to pay attention to is that idea choose the word. So even if you have a startup already, you need to also pay attention to ideation, because the moment you stop ideating, that's the moment you stop growing. If you have a startup already, the moment you stop ideating in your startup, that is the moment that the startup stops growing, because ideas rules the world. And one of the key markers for a startup is that they are very, very keen on bringing in solutions that solve people's problems. Number two, as regards products, after you've actually been able to see you've actually gone through the process of market research and validating your idea, another thing which you must pay attention to is idea validation, because it's going to lead to the product. So once you actually have an idea already, the very next thing for you to do is to begin to build a product out of your idea. Begin to build a product out of your idea. Ideas are everywhere. They are very easy to come by, but and some are very, very difficult to come by, right? Depending on the kind of industry that you play in. But still at that, many people stop at the ideation stage and then they don't continue to build. Many people have ideas, but the idea just ends at the ideation stage and they don't continue to say they want to build a product around the idea. I don't know if you actually have an idea before and then you never worked on the idea. And then the very next thing you are seeing is that one startup or one company, they are bringing up that same idea, they are bringing up a product or around the same idea which you had some, let's say, some time ago, right? So one thing which must be very, very keen is that once you are able to have an idea, the very next thing is don't stop at the ideation stage. The very next thing that you should move down to the product stage, right? So the product which you must build must be very, very tangible. It could be digital or it could be physical, right? So depending on the kind of industry which you are playing in, make sure that you build a product around the idea. So a well-defined product must align with your initial idea and then the value proposition. All right. So it's very, very crucial for you to iterate and refine your product based on user feedback. All right. So once you begin to build the product, endeavor to push the product down to the target audience to see if it's actually kind of valuable. And then based on the user feedback, can begin to iterate and then begin to develop more and more on the product. So the very next thing is team. Yeah, this is where many people flop up. This is where many people make mistakes as regards building their startups, right? So your team is actually the driving force behind turning your idea into reality. So building the right team involves you finding individuals with complementary skills, expertise, and a shared vision for the startup. And many founders make mistake in choosing co-founders and team members. All right. So one thing which was actually like which must be key in terms of you and finding team members is find team members who actually like complement you in the places whereby you are lacking. Find team members who can actually like fill in the gap for you. And lastly, the last part is execution. So execution is actually the process of you turning your idea and product into a viable business. So it involves the practical steps of building, marketing, and selling your product or service. So your execution must actually have a kind of well executed strategy that ensures that you effectively reach out to your target audience, and then you acquire customers and then begin to generate revenue. Right. So your execution plan must actually contain your strategy to launch and then how you intend to generate revenue for the product. All right. So execution could also include you managing finances, operations, growth, and how you intend to scale the product. So all of these four are the things which actually bring about you having a successful startup. Without these four into place, there is no way you can actually like say you want to have a successful startup. So lastly, just before we round up for tonight, one thing which I want to speak on is how to fund your vision, right? How to fund your vision. This is where many founders, this is where many product people, this is where they get stuck, right? Because funding is a key part of you trying to say you want to launch, try to launch your startup, right? So funding is a crucial aspect of turning your innovative idea into a viable and successful venture. So this phase actually involves acquiring financial resources which you need to develop, launch, and scale your tech product or your company. And many tech founders they actually like flop at this because many tech founders are actually kind of tech savvy, and then they're deficient in terms of financial modeling, right? So for you to actually like say you want to begin to source, there are different ways for you to source funds for your product. It could be through you getting into an accelerator program, or through you getting into an incubation program. You could even raise funds from a VC or from you could raise funds from, let's say, from a VC or from a PE, as a private equity, right? So based on agreement between yourself and then the investors, right? These are the ways for you. These are the ways through which you can actually like begin to raise funds for your business, right? So sometimes the best techies or software engineers don't make the best CEO because they are lacking in entrepreneurship knowledge. And this is why they should actually like seek for financial experts and advisors. So while you've actually like done the four processes of building your startup, right? You've gone through the ideation stage and to the product stage, the team stage and execution stage, right? Begin to seek advice from people who are actually like kind of financial savvy than yourself. All right. All right, so thank you everyone for listening. I don't know if anybody has a question at this juncture. Let me know if you have a question.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Wave. Thank you very much. We really appreciate the enlightenment you gave us today on startups. Let's all do it to go into the comment section. There is a link there for you to drop your feedback. Let's do well to drop our feedback. I'm very sure a lot of us have gained today's today's event. If you have question, do well to ask now, or you just use the hand raising button. So you can actually raise your hand to ask questions. If you have questions regarding startups, do you have an idea that still hasn't answered the question yet from what you said? Do well to drop your question and don't hesitate to give us feedback in the comment section. You will see the link to the feedback. All right, it seems there is no question. Well, I've really gained a lot from this session, so I'll be giving you all a recap of things I was able to gain from this, and I'm very sure you all have also been able to gain from this too. He talked about startup. He explained about startup being a destructive innovation. That is a very very creative idea that produces growth. And he actually explained to us how it is different from small medium enterprises, that is other local businesses. He told us how he explained to us how they are different from each other, starting from where he told us about how rapidly a startup can grow compared to small medium enterprises. He told us about how risky it could be to have a startup, whereas it can also give a large produce or a large gain. It also made us understand the spark of innovation, which is the art of startup. That is a relentless problem solving solution. That is what innovation is all about. He also told us about the blueprint for a successful startup. That is, to have a successful startup, what should you have at the back of your mind? What are the things you are supposed to mark? What are the things you are supposed to have, like all are the things you're supposed to have their ideas before you can have a successful startup, where he mentioned about having your idea first. He told us how you could have an idea, which is paying attention to the problems around you to gain the ideas. To have ideas, make sure you choose. He told us that we should also make sure to choose the word idea, like that is our idea. Any idea we are choosing, should be referring to the world, should be what the world is seeking, should be what the world wants from us, should be something that will solve a problem for the world. That is what a startup is actually really about. He also moved on into the products. He told us we had to build products after having the idea in the mind. Build your idea into a product that is a tangible product, either physical or digital, to the target audience. He also mentioned about building team. That is from ideas to building a product, from building a product to building a team. That is, you should have a team member, not the co-founder being your team member. Your team member being your co-founder. He said it should be your team member should be people that will fill up a place, will fill up the space of where you are lacking in building your startup, so as to so as to build the products well. And also he talked about funding our vision. Yes, a lot of us actually be thinking about, oh, I have the idea, yeah, I can do this, but how do I fund my vision? And told us seek financial advice. You don't just jump into it, or you just go for it just like that. Seek financial advice. Just make sure you have idea of how the finance go before you jump into it. Thank you very much for attending. To those that attend, I believe a lot of us have gained. I'm very sure from what I said, but it's just a little part of it. There are a lot of things that I said that I could not put into the summary, but from my summary, just that was basically most of the things they talked about. For those of us that are just joining, sorry you are coming late, but we hope to have you at the event once again next month, last Thursday. So this event is an event that will always come up every last Thursday of the month. Thank you very much to our speaker again for the enlightenment. Thank you very much to Legacy Lab for these events. Thank you very much to our partner Outnovately Africa. Thank you very much to Google Developer Student Club, Ekiti State University. Thank you very much to all the attendees. Really appreciate you, and I believe you all were able to gain from the event today. All right, see you all next month, last Thursday, for another event, for another enlightenment. I'm very sure you don't want to miss this. And don't forget, kindly fill up the survey link for your feedback. We would love to have a feedback from you all. Have a wonderful night rest, everyone. Thank you very much. Thank you all. Good night. Have a wonderful night rest.